You're listening to a 58 Ember production.
Welcome to Sky Talkers. Here are your hosts, Charlotte and Caitlin.
Hello, and welcome to Sky Talkers. I'm your host, Charlotte.
And I'm your host, Caitlin. If you love Star Wars and you're looking for the best place to break down all the latest TV shows, movies, and themes from Star Wars, you're in the right place with Sky Talkers.
Yes, you are. And we are finally here to discuss the finale of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. I cannot believe we made it, and it was over so fast. Oh my gosh. What did you think? How are we feeling?
It was over so fast.
I know. We just started.
I'm so sad. It's like, hey, you're in the new year. No more cozy holiday season. No more fun new Star Wars show.
I know.
Welcome to the real world.
Literally, it's like a reality check. It is the reality check that the kids got when they came back to their world.
Life in the Shades art.
Yes. Maybe this is the reason why they wanted it to come out during Christmas.
They wanted us to have a rude awakening mid-January.
Yes. Yes. Like, feel this journey.
I love the finale, though. I thought it was so much fun. I feel like some of our speculation came true. Some of it ended up in different directions. And it was just truly an adventure. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. And I had so much fun with it.
I kind of think this is a perfect show. I loved it. I loved it. It was such a great adventure story. It didn't try to do too much, but it was so fun. It was just a really good time. I mean, I'm not going to try to over-intellectualize it. Like, it just was a great time.
Yeah.
The effects were great. The kids were great. The acting was good. The writing was perfect. The directing was stellar. I mean, it was awesome.
It was, in fact, awesome. It was really good. It was wizard, as some might say.
It was so wizard.
It was so wizard.
Okay, so this episode is titled The Real Good Guys. It's directed by John Watts and written by Christopher Ford and John Watts, and it aired on January 14th, 2025. I think it's fun when directors or like showrunners direct the finale and the opening episodes. I don't know. I know it makes sense. I like when they direct the finales.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's almost like a calling card a little bit or something like that. I don't know. It just kind of means something different when you're looking at the lineup.
Like, this is how it's supposed to end.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they've had this idea going or even like kicking off the series too. Totally. That also carries a little bit of weight, I think, with it.
By the end of it, do you have a favorite character?
Oh, God. I don't know.
I know.
I really love Women Fern, but how could you not pick Neil and KB? You know,
I know.
They're all so perfect. I really don't think I can pick a favorite, which I like to pick favorites, honestly, with characters, but I really don't know if I can pick between the kids.
I think it's such a testament to how good the kids are. And just completely lovable. I mean, kids can easily, like, one of them could easily be annoying, you know, and then you could very much prefer one of them over the others. But I'm with you too. I don't have a favorite. I think the character list remained pretty short.
Yeah, it did.
In this show, and I appreciate that so much. I feel like, I don't know. We were on the Holonet Marauders last week to talk about episode 7. And they have something in the end of their shows where they talk about Glup Shido of the Week, which is just like a random character if you are unfamiliar with that term. And I was going through it and I'm like, I feel like this is one of those shows that doesn't really have random weirdos, you know, or like it just, I don't know, it just feels so focused. That's what I'm trying to say. The show feels so focused, and it's hard for me to pick a favorite because we're so focused on how endearing and special and awesome that every single character is. And I'm including Jod in that. I ended up really loving this character.
He's so endearing.
Yeah. So endearing. And as the episodes went on, I just got more and more interested in his character. So let's go through the episode as we do here on Sky Talkers. especially with Skeleton Crew. We used to not do this, but we've gotten some feedback that people like when we go through the episode like this.
So before we get any further, though, we did just want to say at the top of the show, January is Sky Talker's birthday anniversary month. So this is our 8th year, which is so close to a decade.
It's crazy.
And
it's crazy.
Our birthday is actually like our first release date was January 11th. And usually we put out an episode on our birthday, but because we had Skeleton Crew coming out and was wrapping up kind of shortly after our birthday, we decided to postpone our anniversary episode until after Skeleton Crew finished. So our anniversary episode will be coming out next week. We are going to be doing a Q&A episode this year. We retired it last year, but it's coming back this year. So
It's coming back.
You can head on over to our Twitter, Instagram, if you want to submit a question to us on our Patreon as well. And yeah, we update.
You can email us as well.
Yeah, you can email us.
hello@skytalkers.com.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that we also get a lot of questions via email. So thank you for putting that in. And yeah, if you're new to Sky Talkers, we do a birthday episode every year where we talk about our Sky Talkers dinner parties, our updated invite lists, and we do Q&A. Last year we did something a little bit different. So you can go back and listen to our 7-year anniversary, which was really just like a list of recommendations from us to all of you about our show. But it was really fun. But this year we're doing a Q&A, so that will be coming out next week to celebrate 8 years of Sky Talkers.
Yeah, and if you want to include any questions that you have about Skeleton Crew in there, totally open to do that. You want to ask us about the podcast, our Star Wars faves, any random questions, anything about Skeleton Crew or upcoming movies and television shows, just throw them in there and we'll try to get to them.
All right, now we can talk about Skeleton Crew.
Okay, great. So we were all stressed last week around a cliffhanger, a major cliffhanger, and we quickly resolved the cliffhanger, okay? Jod is standing there in opposition with the kids and the parents, but with a lightsaber outdrawn. And I thought it was kind of cool that they started the show with a black screen before they, showed anything on screen. They started it with the lightsaber sound. I thought that was menacing and neat because when we first saw Jod or heard Jod activate the lightsaber, that was a fade to black situation, or it was just a black screen before too when we were on Lanupa. So I thought that was an interesting callback. I thought it was interesting, Caitlin, you were so sure that last week that Jod had taken out all the droids.
I thought he
Turns out he didn't.
Yeah, I mean, great for them.
Yeah.
Until they got powered off, but
Right. I think it was interesting because I had been sort of blown away by you being so sure about that. I was like, I believed you.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
And I was like, wow, that's dark. Like things got really dark, But when I noticed that the droids survived, it was an indicator to me that I wonder how things are going to go and how bad it's actually going to get because the droids are alive. He just wants to go see the supervisor and potentially wants to bring the pirates in. I mean, I'm saying just is a lot, but
take over a planet. He just wants to take over a planet.
It just wants to take over a planet. But I felt like throughout this episode, I felt like it was still a push and pull of where Jod's allegiances lie and how far he would take this pursuit for money.
When I was thinking about the speculation last week, I think I envisioned at least the beginning chunk of the episode being down here in the Mint and that there would kind of be this standoff. So I think it was really surprising that we see Jod send, all the kids and their parents, except for Fern, of course, back to their houses with the droids to keep watch over them and to keep up this emissary bit. Again, no security protocol. No one is asking for identification or anything like that for Jod. So that kind of makes sense, I feel like, for Jod to keep up the bit for as long as he can. And that's what we see him doing here. And we have this great line from Fern where she says, "We were way too troublesome." And the look that Farah gives her, I thought was so great. She's like, what is going on here? And I think that's something we'll be talking about throughout the episode is that it really is about now the parents coming into the fold with the children, really, and learning to trust them and like joining their team. Because what we'll see kind of throughout the first half of the episode is that, Wendell and Farah, they they're happy to keep believing that everything is fine. They're not picking up what the kids are putting down.
Not at all. It was kind of frustrating to me.
Yes. Imagine how women Fern felt.
I know.
Yeah.
To me, I feel like if my kids were as gone, I mean, we have no idea how long they were gone really, but presumably like a week, right?
Mm-hmm. 7 days.
If my kids were missing, left the barrier, I would be really on whoever brought them back, and I would need all the details and information and not immediately trust that this person was a Republic emissary.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that they were sort of on their high horse around the concept that they suggested that they do this, and then the kids that they contact an emissary and then bring the emissary through the barrier and everything, and that was like their suggestion and it worked, and now they're back.
Yeah.
And I get that they would be only focused on that, but I think suspicion is warranted. So it kind of bothers me that it took a second, but it's okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
they've never had any reason to be suspicious of anyone in their lives.
Yeah.
So, but they get there.
True.
They get there. And
Yeah,
this is,
they get there.
we get back home. Fern, Jod is mad that Fern was kind of snarky with him. So Jod takes Fern and Farah to go meet the supervisor, right? And then everyone else goes home, and we see Wim and his dad, Wendell, back home. They're eating a home-cooked meal, which was just a lean cuisine.
I just, nothing like a home-cooked meal. And it's like a microwave, but it's the coolest microwave I've ever seen. I found myself thinking about the logistics of having that microwave, because there's something so lovely about having a microwave that fits into your kitchen, like above the oven or, wherever. And then having like a nicely beautiful glass plate that is your microwave, I feel like is cumbersome. But I was really thinking about it.
To be clear, Charlotte works in the food industry.
Yeah. It's not very clear. It's very clear now. And so I was thinking about the logistics behind that and whether or not that would get a good rating. So
all these houses are prefab. They come as is. You know what I mean? That's the vibe.
But imagine having a microwave in the middle of your table. That's not good.
No, it's not.
It's not helpful.
No, you're right.
Yeah. But it looks cool.
Yeah.
It looks like a candle warmer, which is a cool thing.
And sometimes it really is about the aesthetic.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And anyway, I appreciated that. But I thought this moment was so funny. Nothing like a home-cooked meal. And it's a lean cuisine. He didn't even take it out and put it on a plate or anything. They're eating it straight out of...
It's such a dad move, too.
It is such a dad move. It is such a dad move.
Your kid comes home from being one of the first people ever to leave the planet in at least 30 years. And
like, don't worry, I got something in the freezer. And there's nothing wrong with, like, definitely been there, don't worry. Okay. But it is funny.
It is a little funny. But the whole point of this conversation that Wim and Wendell have is that, Wim is trying to convey to his father secretly that something is amiss. And Wendell just immediately goes back to, well, I'll have to talk to the proctor about your assessment. And, you got to have a career and da-da-da-da-da. And Wim is, there's so much more to the galaxy. But then also, Fern has been trapped, has been taken by Jod, and like no one knows it. And that's what he says later after the blackout. But he's trying to... Like I said, he's trying to convey to Wendell what's going on here, and Wendell is not really getting it. Both Wendell and Farah kind of have to be woken up later throughout the episode. And I loved Wendell, quote unquote, waking up, which we'll talk about when we get down there. But I need to talk about the fact that I'm skipping ahead, but Neil went straight back to the bubble bath. And I just need to say my piece about it here now. It's truly incredible, the mind of a child. Fern gets taken by a man he knows is a liar and bad. Neil is...
And he's home and he's like, you know what I need? A bubble bath in the biggest bubble bath possible.
Just truly incredible.
Honestly, what a king. I think it's perfect. Can you believe that we got two
and the spa planet? Star Wars really said self-care.
Yeah. Yeah. They said, you know what? We really like taking baths.
I
It's
just
so great.
and the fact that like Neil is in the bubble bath. We see the bubble bath shot when the blackout happens, and his all his little baby siblings are out on the lawn sitting on the grass
I know.
with the mom, and Neil is in the bathtub.
I
Where's
know.
the father? Anyway.
The father was around.
No, we see him once.
Yeah, in the streets.
Yeah. Anyway, I love Neil so much, and I love that he stayed true to himself and went, today's been a day. And he's like, I gotta go take a bubble bath.
I need the comforts of my own home, and the comforts being the bubble bath. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Just to go back a little bit, I want to talk about how we found out in this conversation with Wim and Wendell that the conversation goes as such: if you don't get assessed, how are you going to have a career? How are you going to be part of the great work? And Wim goes, there's a lot more to the galaxy than the great work. And that's when Wendell's like, you think I didn't want to just take off and meet a Jedi? And what we find out throughout this episode, and I think we sort of knew this, but I think it's confirmed here, the great work is money. It's making money. It's money. When we're talking about this planet is all for a coin, cold hard credits.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I thought that in our first episodes when we were speculating about what's on the wall and who is that and everything. I really thought it was building a society. I don't think I really understood that the society was all for money. And I think this is a Star Wars theme that does come around often. And I think it's sort of under the surface in Skeleton Crew too, by the way, around how greed and working for the man can corrupt any sort of free will and like ideologies and things like that. Again, I think it's under the surface on Skeleton Crew. I think it's more front and center in a show like Andor, right? But I think it's interesting that we find out that the great work is money, making money, serving money. How can the money that goes nowhere too? But everyone on At Attin is working for the express purpose of creating money that doesn't even move, just so that they can have a suburban life that is cushy and comfortable.
I wouldn't even say it's like so they can have the suburban life. It's like there's no other alternative. Like, what do you mean the rest of the galaxy isn't like this? That's kind of the feeling I got, is that it's just what's done. What do you mean other planets don't look like this, that they're not doing their own thing? That someone isn't making exclusively ship parts, but also having this, nice suburban town. We're all part of the great work, and our part of the great work is the money portion of it. Which I think that does lead us nicely into the Supervisor is a droid. He's a droid. He's fully a droid, an operational droid. And I think the real shocker was that Farah doesn't seem surprised about this.
I am so shook by this. I really thought that everyone was under the guise that the Supervisor was a man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or just someone.
Yep.
I think it's really interesting. And I think we had already recorded, but by the end of the night last week, I think you and I had sort of decided that the Supervisor was going to be a droid. It was happening. And for me, I was like, oh, maybe this whole story of Skeleton Crew, by the end of it, is going to be some sort of comment on AI and this, like the structures that come into place when something is overly automated or something, right? That the culture of At Attin is hidden, and something is, like I said, below the surface and sinister around this utopia that is all because they sort of run by the rule of, I don't know, artificial intelligence, like a droid or something. But that's not really what we got here. I think they sort of left the door open for that now that, spoiler alert, we find out that Jod stabs the Supervisor in the eye. So there's no Supervisor, no droid running anything anymore. But I felt like there was something there that could have been potentially explored in future seasons now that we have this discovery, but that's not what we got in this finale. I just had to say my piece about that because I think it's brilliant that the supervisor is a droid, but it really did take me by surprise that Farah isn't surprised at all. And when Jod says you're ruled by a droid, and she goes, as decreed by the great work. I mean, what?
My jaw was on the floor.
Me
I thought
too,
I
me
did
too.
not see this coming, because especially when they walked in and there's all the dust on everything, I was thinking, here's where we're going. It's going to be the reveal. Everyone's going to be shocked. And then Farah wasn't at all. And, the kids obviously know about the great work, but we know that there were things that they were going to learn at graduation about being hidden, about, more about the planet's history. And I suppose learning about the supervisor being a droid. And it's just so fascinating that you could create, like, how nefarious to create this whole planet that is ruled by a droid, by droids. I guess found myself thinking about, like, okay, where's the arts and culture? And, everyone has to take assessment. Everyone has to do what they're supposed to do. No one leaves the planet. And you get people into this mindset that this is just the way it has to be for the great work. Who is the mastermind behind it? You think about all the other planets that were considered the jewels of the old republic, and were each of them ruled by droids as well? They were all part of this great work. All of these people that were sent to these planets and already inhabited these planets, whatever it was, however long ago. And then they're all just trapped there by these other entities that put droids in place to rule them, to create resources for the Republic. It's really dark. I think when you kind of spin it out, and like you said,
that's what I mean. That's sort of what I was trying to get at, is that I do think there's something really dark here.
Yeah. And that no one would ever question that. I'm sure there were people on At Attin and these other planets who did at some point, but they were probably swiftly taken care of. Because we hear the supervisor say, oh, is that Undersecretary Farah and Fern I see? I've been keeping a close watch. Like, he knows, he knows who everyone is and what everyone is doing. He knew that Fern was gone. So great to see you back,
Because this AI is fed all the information of everyone.
Yeah, because it's all one central.
It's literally a surveillance state.
Yeah,
like it
exactly.
literally is.
Yeah.
So and I think that's why, I guess, I just want to be clear. I have no disappointments with this entire episode. I think it was great. I just have a lot of questions around the supervisor. And I understand why we are not diving into what we're talking about, because even in interviews today that John Watts and Christopher Ford did, they were really focused on keeping the perspective of the kids.
Yeah.
And I think what we saw, it was the parents who were sort of questioning the efficacy of all of this in the previous episode when they were in that boardroom and being like, well, we're just talking to droids. Like, we need to talk to someone. I mean, the irony there is that they would talk to just a bigger droid eventually if they just talk to the supervisor. But it seems like the supervisor is a much more human-like droid than the droids that worked for the supervisor, right? But regardless of that, if we were to dive in a season 2 or season 3 or something like that, I think that there would be a realization from the kids that something is odd about the structure of the planet, especially now that there's like no assessment anymore, right? And that's where we would sort of dive into what we're talking about here. But instead there's much more concerning things on the line.
This really kind of puts a layer on one of your favorite topics, which is droid independence.
I know. I've been thinking about it too. I don't really have a take on it. I think the fact that the supervisor, quote unquote, died just by one lightsaber to the eyeball is not the whole story either. But I think that's just for another time. I don't know. I don't really have a take on it. I really don't. About like what was sort of introduced in Solo, the droids' rights situation. And I guess like you can look at this and think that everyone is worshiping the supervisor. He's like the Wizard of Oz character, right? This is the Wizard of Oz. we did get that piece that we've been speculating about a lot. And I guess like that's great for the droids. I don't know. Again, I don't have a take really. I've been thinking about it though.
But what
Maybe
L3
someday I'll have a
think?
take. Yeah, I think L3 would be like, that's great. Awesome.
Good for him.
You know, but then also be like, how is this one droid wielding its power?
Yeah.
I think that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Is that when we talk about like sentience and full sentience, I think that the supervisor could be that. I don't know. We just didn't get enough of that.
Yeah.
So I can't really speak to it in the same way that we can speak to L3 and her entire worldview around droid sentience and droids' rights and breaking out and things that we saw in Solo. It's just different.
It is different.
It's a different story.
Yeah. Just another added layer to put on our bulletin board. Put a pin in it.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that is so funny to me though is not to like move on because I think it is crazy. This reveal was so casual. It's just crazy. That we did actually get an Order 66 reference.
We made it, kids. We made it.
I know. The supervisor, the reference was in order to be incredulous around Jod. And he says, the last message from the Republic was that all the Jedi are traitors. I was like, oh my God.
I put my hands up. I was like, we got a timeline.
Yeah, we got a timeline. And I think that just even that, the fact that the supervisor then is aware of that the messages of all the Jedi were traitors really went to everywhere in the galaxy.
Palpatine was set.
Which, well, doesn't that raise a little bit of eyebrows? How did that message get to At Attin? Did Palpatine know about this planet?
Oh yeah. You gotta. But then why wasn't he using
this
it?
This is why we need a season 2 or season 3 or they need to recycle the At Attin storyline in another Mandoverse story or something, because for me this is like a very clear pathway into the First Order using the money here to fund their operation.
Yeah, but then why wasn't Palpatine using the money during the Empire's reign?
They probably didn't need it. They're like so set. They have access to everything. I mean, I feel like I agree with you. I totally agree with you. I just think that maybe it's just not needed.
Yeah.
Until it was super needed. Okay. However, I want to mention when they did get off the elevator and access this room with the supervisor, which, by the way, I kind of want to call a throne room. It has throne room-esque elements similar to what we see in Return of the Jedi and the Last Jedi.
But more technical.
But way more technical.
Yeah.
And that leads me to say, this reminded me of a lot of concept art that we saw for The Rise of Skywalker, for the spooky vibe of Palpatine being puppeteered by that robot arm. You know? And even the robot arms that are on all the ships and everything, I think I commented that it reminded me of Palpatine's, like, what he's dangling on, essentially, in The Rise of Skywalker. But even the, like, you know, dusty machines, it reminded me a bit of Exegol and what we have seen there. And especially in the concept art, which I'm sure that was referenced at some point.
Yeah. There's definitely still that Wizard of Oz element as well, with kind of the supervisor being the big droid, central tower, central computer, whatever you want to call it, because the wizard has, you know, the big kind of fake head that he talks through from behind the curtain. So I still think there's that Wizard of Oz element as well.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, I agree with you. There is kind of some visual parallels to like things on Exegol.
And design-wise, the supervisor is like Hal in 2001: A Space Odyssey. Very similar, even the big like red button. I thought the design was really interesting. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, it's just like a giant astromech head. But it's a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
But that was initially what I thought.
Yeah. It is just wild to think that there's no backup in place. You know what I mean? The fact that Jod was able to stab the supervisor.
There's totally a backup.
But like, everything went out.
There's totally a backup.
You know?
There eventually will be a backup, but someone just had to activate it and no one did.
Does that anyone
because all the droids are out?
Yeah, it's because it's all controlled in one supervisor, you know? It's just,
I would say if Wim's father is, what does he say? I'm a level 7 systems coordinator. Like, what about that? To me, we're talking about level 8 or 9 or 10 systems coordinator that would know that.
The fact that no one else came to the What's the emergency protocol on Skeleton Crew on At Attin?
There's like zero.
There's zero because they don't need it.
It's kind of nuts.
It is. That's what I'm saying. It's like, does At Attin have its own contingency plan? And I don't think we'll find that out, because if there is a season 2, right, the barrier has been brought down. At Attin has been brought into the proverbial real galaxy now.
New Republic.
So, the New Republic. Anyway, I feel like there's a lot of questions about things we may or may not get answers to. So what was happening in this scene with the supervisor, and once he is killed by Jod? It's the back and forth between Jod and Fern and Farah. And Fern, just like Wim in the previous scene with Wendell, and what we'll see again later on, is trying to get her mom on the same page as her. And like Wendell, she's not picking up what Fern is putting down until she finally says it. And the supervisor is actually the one to believe her when she shouts out, he's a pirate trying to invade the mint. And then, it becomes a hostage situation. And we do have some interesting lines from Jod, which we'll continue to talk about throughout the episode, where he says, I don't want to destroy anything. I just want to land my ship. We'll take our fill of credits and we'll go. You'll never see us again. No one will get hurt. And Fern says he's lying and begs her mom not to tell him basically how to get through the barrier, how to communicate with his ship, anything else about At Attin. Do you think Jod was lying here? Do you think he would take his fill of credits and go?
Well, it didn't seem like it, because later we find out that he was planning on using the people for workers when he took control of it. But I do think there was a flash of, I don't think, even by the end of it, and Wim thinks this as well, like, I don't think he's all bad, right? I think he's just a pirate after money who's been starving his whole life. Like, he told us who he is, and that's who he is, And I do think that if he did that, he might have gotten away with it by just getting the credits and leaving. But instead, he had to bring his crew down, and that's a problem. But when he said this, I was like, well, maybe it's true, but maybe that's just how this character is, in that he not only convinces the audience that maybe that is fact, but it's not.
Yeah, it's not. From there, we do now we're at the blackout point in the episode. The pirates come down. The whole sequence with the pirates coming down and, kind of interspersed throughout the next couple of minutes of the episode of them basically laying waste to At Attin when they are coming in their little tugboats, and then when they're raining down lasers onto the planet. It was so alarming, and I truly can't imagine being in a situation like that.
It's alien invasion. It was like War of the Worlds to me. It was very
coming down through the barrier.
Yeah.
And
it was great.
We have KB and Neil race up to Wim's house on their speeder bikes, and speeder bikes still work. And Wim, immediately gets his own speeder bike. Wendell is still pushing we got to find somewhere safe to go, and the delivery of Wim's line here when he said, he didn't save us, he's trying to get us, was just so.
I think he's trying to get us is so good.
Yeah.
Because he could have said, I was thinking about this for a while, and it's actually why I wrote it in the notes, because he's trying to get us is like such a child line. I'd never say that, you'd never say that, but kids say that because it's like, it was perfect.
Yeah.
It's a perfect line, because he could have said he's trying to kill us. He's trying to take our money. He's trying to instead he's trying to get us.
Yeah. There's even the difference between Fern and Wim, where Fern tells her mom, or tells the supervisor, he's trying to take over he's a pirate trying to take over the mint, right? She's she's very specific. And then Wim, a little bit younger, going, he's trying to get us.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely perfect. And guys, we finally made it. The kids made a plan.
They hatched a plan, and it's perfect.
I love how KB and Neil already had the plan, and they are.
Yeah, they roll up with the plan. They're like, "Where are we gonna go?" Blah, blah, blah. Lots of exposition. Yeah. Here's the plan. It's funny when Star Wars, and any movie, honestly, any adventure movie, delivers a plan. Like, here's the plan. This is what we're gonna do. My eyes immediately always gloss over. I'm not listening to the plan.
Okay, the plan was not that long.
No, I know. I'm really just taking a second to talk about how important it is to show the plan, though, in a film or a television show like this. And then you understand the machinations of the plan.
Yeah.
I
was so excited. And honestly, of course, it's KB and Neil who actually create the plan, because I do think they're logically the smartest. I think Fern and Wim can be pretty ruled by their emotions, whereas KB and Neil are very practical, I think. Aside, I can't say the bubble bath was practical, but like we'll give Neil that.
Honestly, maybe it was practical. Maybe he freaking stank. Like maybe the mom was like, we can't do anything. We cannot be around you. That's why we're going outside.
I love the idea that Neil is still just like a little damp when he had to put back on his overalls.
Yeah, for sure. The same
Like
clothes.
KB comes up to the door and he's like still drying off.
I know. It's perfect.
But we have been leading to this. I feel like I've been a broken record about this, that the kids, like part of their character development as a group is creating a plan together and slowing down long enough to enact it. And really a lot of this is hinging on Wim because he's the one that crashes ahead and he repeats back the plan. He listens.
Something I could not do.
He's like, right, of course. But I thought that was so important because it showed that he slowed down and listened, and he's on board. They know what they're going to go do, and him calling back, just trust me, to his dad, and they zoom off. And I love that.
Well, I mean, the character development even beyond this. I mean, you just said Neil and KB are like the smartest and they are the most practical for sure. But Neil was not brave.
Right.
And now he is so brave.
He's
the fact that they're charging forward and the bravery and like confidence he's gained from the trip. I mean, even before when they were racing out into the woods, the whole time Neil was like, we're going to get in trouble. What are we doing? Instead, now we have this reversal of no, we're going, we're racing. Full circle, man.
I love these kids.
I know. And the music goes crazy.
Oh my
I love the
gosh.
camera work and the tracking shots. I mean, it's so ET, but it's faster. It's more intense. It's just great. The hover bikes are so awesome. I don't know. I love it. And I also think that it's great because the kids are charging forward and KB's like, we're going to have to make the jump. We're making a jump and it's like this, over this chasm. And Wendell is the one that's nervous. He's like, wait, I'm heavier than you. I don't know if I could do it, And then he does it. It's just a great example of now the kids are really leading the parents into the right direction.
Yeah.
Into success.
Yeah. And Wendell has a little moment of, oh my gosh, that was so cool.
Yeah.
That he didn't.
Yeah. I just like, can we just talk about Wendell for a little bit? I feel like this man has been bogged down by capitalism and the system forever. He has no time to spend time with his kids or his kid, right? No time at all because he's working for the man, the supervisor.
The droid.
And he's also like probably in his feels for whatever happened to the wife, right? And I feel like the joy that he experienced in this one episode by getting to have like a little mission, a little time with his son and see, how his son's like personality and interests. And I don't know. I feel like by the end of it, he was so proud and happy and it's great. I feel like in the beginning, I didn't really know what to make of Wendell. And by the end of it, I'm just happy that he got to have this little adventure with his son.
Yeah, me too. I really loved Women Wendell's trajectory in this episode. I really just liked seeing Wendell let loose, which seems like a weird thing to say when pirates are
No, but it's true.
pillaging and plundering your planet. But he does. And he this whole time he's been saying how sorry he is to Wim for not listening to him. But then in the beginning of the episode, he's still kind of not listening. But now he's finally listening, So Neil gets hit at the school and they leave him behind because he tells them to. Neil tells them to. And then KB and Wim and Wendell all get back to the Onyx Cinder. And there's, on the Women Wendell front, there's the cute moment of, Dad, isn't this ship the best?
I know.
Again,
that's the other piece of like, this is so great. Now Wim is like showing off his wares basically to his dad.
Ship. Wendell is surprised that they know how to fly it. And we find out there's basically a parking ticket, a boot. Yeah, a boot on the Onyx Cinder. And I cheered so loudly because this is when Wim and KB don't know what to do next. We got to get the power on. We can fly the ship. We've got this great plan, but what do we do now? And Wim asks his dad, can you turn the power back on? And this is the great line of, son, you're talking to a level 7 systems coordinator. Get on the bike. It was just, it was so good.
It was wholesome.
It was so wholesome. And, the title of the episode is The Real Good Guys. And I think, obviously Wim and the kids are calling for the X-Wings. That's who they think are the real good guys. But I think throughout the episode, you get to see that the real good guys are their parents and each other.
Mm-hmm.
And this is that moment where, I don't know, you just see Wim's eyes light up that his dad knows what to do. And his dad gets to be the hero in this moment. And then I'm sure they made like a little plan on the speeder bike once they're racing towards the supervisor's tower. It just...
Yeah, that felt like something that was potentially cut.
Mm-hmm, yeah. We do get a shot of them where Wendell is, telling Wim which way to lean at, because now Wendell is in the driver's seat. And anyway, I loved this moment with them, where now Wendell is fully on board with what everyone is doing, with what the kids are doing.
For sure. Can I just talk a little bit about the pillaging and plundering that happened of At Attin when the pirates landed, and it got violent really quick, but not like too violent. It got violent, but I felt like some of it was sort of cartoony in that we saw like the billowing drapes and everything. It just really reminded me of Pirates of the Caribbean, The Ride, which has a sort of cartoony pillage and plundering scene in that ride too, with like fire and everything. I was kind of waiting for the fire. I was waiting for some cartoonish fire to come out of these houses, but we didn't get that. But I do think that was a little bit of a reference there. Another thing I thought was great is that when Neil gets, taken down and he has to stay behind on this one area, we come right around. We've been talking about it. We come around to Neil activating and using the big gun that Helena showed her. What's her name? Hannah?
I think it's Hannah.
Yeah. That Hannah showed on the mirrored planet. And I thought that was perfect. And he used the big gun. He has the big gun moment. And he was just so brave. I'm just so proud of Neil. He came so far.
Well, they improvised the plan, right? Because he got hit, and then he said, you guys go on. You guys, the ship is going to need cover. I'm going to figure that out.
Yeah.
And they completely have trust in him to do it. And he's taking the skills that he's learned, the knowledge that he's taken in, and if At Akron had this thing on top of the school, maybe we have this thing on top of the school. And they did. It
really is the friends we made along the way.
It really is. It was so great.
I know. It's so crazy.
So now we jump back into the supervisor's office, and Fern and Farr are basically being held hostage by John. And Farr is talking about how, you weren't the bear was supposed to protect you from all of this. The galaxy is so dangerous. And this was, I'm sure you teared up. I teared up. Fern says, yeah, the galaxy is scary and dangerous. Everywhere we went, everywhere we went, though, even the worst places, there were good people too. People that can help us. You have to trust me. And if that's not a Star Wars line, I don't know what is. It was just so perfect. And it really reminded me of the line in Tross of it's all just people,
Yes. I feel like this is the line of the series and maybe the line of the episode. I don't know, the line of the series. And I think this really shows Fern's maturity and what they've all learned on their journey. But I think if we could just take a step back and in this conversation, Farah has spent her whole life working for the man and working really like getting pretty high up, right? And I think she's very stuck on the fact that the barrier is meant to protect them. It protects the kids, it protects our families, it protects our livelihood, it protects everything. And so by shutting down the barrier, we change everything, including everything that I've worked for. And it exposes everyone to dangers. Yeah. And suddenly things aren't safe anymore. And I think Fern coming back with this line, the galaxy is scary and dangerous. Everywhere we went, even the worst places, there were good people too. This is the elixir. This is we've been talking about it in terms of the hero's journey. When the hero returns home, what are they going to bring, and what do they bring in order? What is the end goal of the hero's journey? Is a success, right? And what is the elixir that she brings back, or they bring back, the kids? And this is it. And I think it just really speaks to a theme that is so present in Star Wars. Specifically, I was thinking about Revenge of the Sith, actually, and how that story is such a tragedy because Anakin really thinks that there's a tragedy for many reasons, but part of it is actually the part of it is that Anakin tries so hard to keep the ones that he loves alive, to safe, and it turns into control, right? And then it all turns terrible for him and everyone in the galaxy, right? But that all came from a place of wanting to keep everything that you love safe. And you just can't. That's just not how it works in the real world. Obviously, Revenge of the Sith is a heightened operatic example, but this is a different sort of example where we have, and this is obviously heightened and operatic too, it's a space opera, but there's a literal barrier that protects everyone inside, and the removal of it is fully opening to danger, and safety is gone. And so this decision of what do we do next? We have to save everyone, but it requires us to turn off the barrier to
Make ourselves
let
vulnerable.
actually the good people in. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like you just have to prepare your loved ones for the worst constantly. You can't keep people alive. You can't preserve people. You can't keep people from danger. You have to just prepare them atrocious things. And you have to hope that they do remain safe, because people are people and people have free will. And you can't just zone that out. And I think Attin is a very obvious, like, over the top example of this, but it really goes with a Star Wars theme, in my opinion, especially like we saw this in The Bad Batch too with Pabu. And we saw this I think we even saw it in The Mandalorian. Like, it happens a lot, right? Where you can't just protect something so much that they don't have people need free will. People need to be able to experience the world themselves, and do things for themselves. So I don't know. I was really moved by this.
Yeah, and it's not even about preparing for the worst. It's like understanding that it isn't just bad out there. That is a misconception about the galaxy. That it is scary and dangerous, but it's also not. And that there was all of this light out there. And even Jod later on kind of talks about pinpricks of light coming through in one of his speeches in his backstory. And particularly at this time, in the time of the Empire, which Jod would have lived through, would have been pinpricks of light. But you got to imagine that for a lot of the galaxy at this point in the timeline with the New Republic, it probably feels much lighter now that the Empire is gone. You would hope so anyway. And we've been talking so much about the elixir and like what the kids would bring back. And I know I've been talking a ton about they don't actually know the history of the galaxy. What is the elixir? And this was a much better elixir, that there are good people out there, that we don't have to stay hidden. And here's been my experience out in, the wide galaxy, that there are good people, because there are good people out there. And I just think that's a much better elixir than the history, which I won't lie to you, I still wish we had more.
I know.
But
I know. It was definitely the lingering question of like, they still don't get it.
Yeah.
But again, the story is through the eyes of the kids. So if they didn't learn it, we're not going to discuss it.
Yeah. I guess. I still wanted them to learn it. But regardless, I still think this was the better elixir. That now this is kind of giving another push of we can turn the barrier off. We can let ourselves,
We'll be okay.
Yeah, we will be okay. There will be people to come and help us, because people out there actually care about each other. And yeah, your first interaction with the galaxy of these pirates coming in is not a great first impression, but
Totally.
people are coming to help us. They will hear our call. And I think that is wonderful.
Absolutely. Speaking of elaborate tales and stories that they could have heard, but they didn't, when Wim and Wendell come up to the office and Wim is distracting Jod with this like elaborate tale that he's spun about like they're able to get through and he called the X-Wings. They haven't called the X-Wings yet. He called the X-Wings and they're coming and it's over. I love how he says it's over. It was great. And then Fern goes along with the story, which I thought was great also because it really, gives into Wim's sort of adoration for stories and he gets to have this moment of spinning a tale. We find out that something I thought was interesting is Jod says, all the Jedi are dead. Like your story isn't true. All the Jedi are dead. Is this brand new information to Wim in just talking about the history and everything? If so, it could be like a glass breaking, life altering realization for him.
I think it is. We've been talking about this all season that Wim is this is part of the history he's gonna learn, that the Jedi don't really exist anymore. And what is that gonna do? But then he meets Jod, who has all of the characteristics of a Jedi, but is not one either, and is in fact coming to get him. I loved this too because the plan that Fern tells her mom that she has to be the distraction, and then Wim comes in being a distraction, and it's like they were kind of on the same page, Wim and Fern, and I thought it was so great. I thought it was really interesting that Jod clearly knows this story is fake because Wim has started off by saying the Jedi army is on their way, and he obviously knows that there's no Jedi, but he still lets Wim trail out this whole story about the crystal of the founders, and they've called the X-Wing even though all the power is off. And
I think he's kind of charmed by the whole thing.
I think he is a little bit too.
I think he's been charmed by it for a long time, even if he doesn't want to admit it when he had his really bad headache and everything.
It's my ibuprofen.
I think it's a big part of it.
When you're hungry.
Yeah, I feel like his whole backstory that we reveal. I'm going to read it. Okay. He says, when Wim says, "You're no Jedi, you lie, and now the real good guys are coming." This is later. And Jod says, "The good guys. No one's coming to save you, boy. Grow up. That's not when I was your age, all I cared about was not starving. I was living in a hole in the ground and a Jedi found me. She may have been desperate and ragged like me, but she told me I had potential, and she taught me a little before they hunted her down and made me watch whilst they killed her. That's the galaxy. It's dark with a few pinpricks of light. And for those, I'll kill who I need to kill." Great scene. Mm-hmm. Great exposition from Jod. So we get a confirmation that he was sort of found by a Jedi, an unnamed Jedi. We don't know who this is. And that Jedi told him that he had potential. And I look back between the relationship between Jod and Wim, and I think that there was a little bit of that there for them too. I think Jod gave some advice to Wim and really showed the kids how to operate the ship and to do a lot of things, right? Like I feel like this is why he's such a shifty character, is we saw some goods. We saw those pinpricks of light. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I think that because of that, I do feel like he has a soft spot for the kids. And throughout it, when I was watching it the second time, and obviously knowing how it ends and that he doesn't kill any of the kids, right? That I watched it and I'm like, I don't think any of the kids are actually in danger. Like I don't actually think he would want to kill them. I know he says he does, but that last look, and we'll talk about that later. I don't know. I felt like there is this interesting relationship, I guess, between Jod and Wim, that there could have been a sort of apprentice type situation, but that never happened. And I just feel like there was a soft spot there.
Yeah, I think there was. I definitely felt like the parents were always more at risk than the kids. I never thought he would hurt the kids, at least not seriously hurt them. But I was, every time he whipped out the lightsaber and pointed it at another parent, I was a little worried.
I totally agree. I feel like there is a really good scene also that reminded me of Return of the Jedi and then The Last Jedi, when in Return of the Jedi, Palpatine makes Luke go see through this big like fisheye lens how the rebels are walking into a trap, that he knows everything, right? And sort of same thing in The Last Jedi with Rey and Snoke, when Snoke makes Rey look out this window and see how far the devastation is and how they're gaining and whatever. And when Jod says, "Look at what you've done, now go look," and they go to this big window, it just really reminded me of that, and I liked it. It felt very Star Wars. And throughout this, I was thinking, when they're watching KB go down after she's contacted the X-Wing and everything, it reminded me, it made me think about how, if they were going to tug at our heartstrings at all with the danger of the kids, they would do it with KB, because that we've already experienced that, right? Mm-hmm. And at that point, we find out that actually KB is actually the most vulnerable, because she's been in an accident, and we already know that she's been in an accident. So her being in another accident, will she actually survive this time, is sort of where the stakes are. And her life is super precious here. So it really means a lot, I guess, when Fern and Wim are witnessing her go down on the ship. And the way that that is, I guess the word is animated. It was really good. And I also liked that we didn't see the explosion. That gave me some confidence, right?
Yeah. I was a little worried, but I kept repeating to myself, they're not going to kill off one of the kids. They're not going to kill off one of the kids.
Yeah, but what mattered to the kids was that they witnessed that.
Totally. And they believed she was gone.
And the stakes were extremely high. Yeah. And I think they believed that she was gone, because Fern was crying and things like that, right?
And this is another moment of, kind of understanding that Jod does have some kind of attachment to the kids, because he is also kind of clearly upset in this moment too, where he says, "It didn't need to be like this. It doesn't matter who you call, they can't get through the barrier." And
yeah, he's like so mad.
Yeah, he's
about KB going down. It's not even like,
I mean, I think we also have to remember too, though, that the Onyx Cinder already has credits on it. Yeah, so there's that piece of it too. But I do think it's about KB as well, because Jod and KB have a relationship too. They, thinking back to episode 3, where she's the one talking to him about the probability of him being a Jedi, and he's like, you just kind of have a little trust, and they have that moment throughout episode 3. So I do think there's something in the relationship between Jod and KB and I think he has that with all of the kids, but that would have made this actually upsetting to him. All right, so we're kind of like at the standoff in the Supervisor's tower, right? KB is down. She's gotten the call out, but the X-Wings are coming, but we don't know KB's fate at this time. Neil used the big gun, lost the big gun, is running somewhere. Not clear.
He's like off the game board.
He's a little bit off the game board. Yeah. But we have this standoff between Jod and Wim and Wendell and Fern and Farah, and it's really all about who is going to get the barrier down. Except now Jod has a problem that the X-Wings are coming. I think he believes that they're coming. So if he puts the barrier down, then they're going to come. But then he can't get the ship out. Well, the pirate ship is already down there. So, he's trying to get all of the people on the planet to be working for him now. That's what he tells everyone on the planet, that they're going to work for him, and it's going to be fine, right? He gives a sob story. It's when he threatens Wim with Wendell, when Wim tries to pull the lever, and both Wim and Fern are ready to pull the lever, right? They recognize that this is the solution. And then Wendell also gets in on that, but Farah is still the one that is holding out. She's the one that still has this hesitation about pulling the lever. And I was thinking about how this was an interesting choice for Farah to be the last to kind of fully lock in, I guess I should say. And I think it kind of makes sense, because she's the person with the most authority as well. And she's kind of the person with the most to lose in this society. And that as a person close to authority, she probably would be the last person to want to give it up, because that is what this is representing, is giving all of that up, giving up this perceived safety that she thinks At Attin has for her family and for the rest of the planet as well.
I think it's really important that it was the parents at the end who pulled the lever. if it was the kids, I think it would have been a sort of a blame game of it's the kids' fault that the barrier went down. But instead, it's these higher up parents who have seemingly knowledge of how this whole system works, right? We've learned that in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it shows that their authority, their belief in their kids too, that this is the only way. So I was surprised by that too, that it was Farah and Wendell at the end who are the people who pull the lever. But to me, it makes a lot of sense when you really sit with it.
Yeah. And again, it's like, who are the real good guys here? And it's their parents who make the final call. And, after Wendell punches Jod, which can I just be so honest here for a second? I almost thought that Wendell had the force. He was kind of
really
reaching out his hand at one point, and I was like, oh my God.
That would be crazy. That would have been crazy.
My brain literally went there, but this was way better.
I think it was really cool the way that the force worked in the scene, by the way.
Yeah.
I think it was what an interesting scene that we get one person who can shoddily use the force and has to stave off, two kids, one with a lightsaber, and then also two parents when they're trying to get to the thing. It was so well directed, honestly, that I really thought this scene was great and really fun.
Yeah. The tension was really there because, he's already kicked back Fern and Farah on the ground. Wendell is, being threatened. He's trying to hold Wendell back. And now Wim has the lightsaber. Fern goes up to, help him with the lightsaber. And then, Farah finally comes in and her and Wendell are able to pull the lever. I thought the tension was so great and really does show that Jod just didn't, he doesn't know how to use the force very well.
Yeah.
Because
it's all put to the test at that point.
Yeah, and he failed. Sorry.
Yep. Oops.
Oopsie daisy.
And the barrier going down, I thought that the effect was super spooky.
Yeah.
And it was almost like this reversal of in Andor, those what is that called?
Aldhani.
I forget what it is. Aldhani. Yes. It was like this reversal of Aldhani where they've been looking up at this like spooky greenish barrier their whole life. And the way that disappeared, I thought was, again, animated so well. I loved how that looked. It was so like a magic spell being undone. And then when everyone who's outside gets the view of the stars for the first time, it's quite literally a reversal of Aldhani, of everyone looking up at the plain galaxy up there. And I thought that was great. I loved that scene. We really sat in it for a second. And it was really meaningful.
Yeah, I totally agree. I loved it. It looked very artistic as well. Like hand drawn in certain spots, which I thought,
because it was a matte painting.
Yeah, which added to that magical quality, I thought. But then the New Republic shows up. Everyone comes. You know who didn't come?
X-Wings, B-Wings. Who didn't
Carson
come?
Teva. He didn't come.
No Carson Teva. This is a Carson Teva-less Mandalorian show.
He's arrived. And he did not arrive.
This is the least, I don't know. I feel like in 2024, 2025, I am shocked that how loose this Mandoverse connection was.
It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just the time period, which I think is kind of how it should be. But at the same time, like, I'm really shocked. Star Wars usually isn't really like this.
There's a cut somewhere of Carson Teva showing up on At Attin.
I can't believe he didn't show up.
You and me, we're the only ones banging the Carson Teva drum.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just crazy.
Yeah. So all of the kids, Wim, Fern, Farah, and Wendell, all run out of the supervisor's office to find KB. And we have this, you already touched on this, Charlotte, but this really interesting last moment between Jod and Wim, where Wim is standing on the elevator and he calls out Jod's name. And Fern is the one who kind of pulls him back, like, no, no. And
Fern, who never trusted Jod.
Exactly. And Wim and Jod share a look, and Jod, I think he kind of imperceptibly shakes his head, like no as well. And he has kind of this very small smile. And I thought this was important too, because even though we've talked so much about Wim's character development of really realizing that Jod is not a hero, that he is a liar. We've talked about how important it is that Wim verbalizes those things. But Jod still represents something important in Wim's life now. And I think that you were talking about this earlier, Charlotte. And I do kind of think it's good that Wim, even for a moment, wants to see something good in Jod again, even after all of that, and maybe doesn't. I mean, if he thinks the tower is collapsing or what, doesn't want that fate for Jod. And is a reminder that, this is a child and a young person, and they had a pretty complicated relationship.
Well, I think it's also he sees the good in, or the potential good in Jod, and sort of wants to believe in that story
Yeah.
that he told himself about Jod.
Yeah.
And not let that fully be shattered.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it is, right? I think that even that look at the end, I think it was a look of, I'm staying here and you're going, and I'm confident in that decision, and you're seeing that I'm confident in that decision too. And I think that shot of him next to the window, God, that was so good.
Very good.
Even the music is fantastic. The music in the show is so good. And it's fantastic. It's the soft flute. It really reminded me of Rogue One, which I think makes sense because that's Michael Giacchino and this is Mick Giacchino. Right. So it's kind of similar in this way, where he's watching his ship go down, and it just reminded me a lot of the Rogue One ending music when the planet at the end is blown up.
Yeah.
And there's kind of like, I don't know. It's hard for me to describe. The planet is blown up, and then now we're shifting into this New Hope, quite literally centered part of the story where we're seeing the Tantive 4 and everything right after that. That's the music cue that really, really reminded me of. And it was so perfect. I think that another thing that we need to talk about is we've been talking so much about what happens to Jod at the end. Is he going to die? Is he going to be crushed by his money? Blah, 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 right? That didn't happen here. He didn't die, and we just see him witness his ship go down. So I think it's fascinating because we did sort of get a Long John Silver ending where I think he did get away.
Yeah, he did.
He did get away.
Yeah.
We will see Jod again if we're lucky, right? This man could live on At Attin forever if no one finds him.
I think he's going to escape because now the barrier is gone. He just needs to find a ship.
He just needs to find a ship, take some money. He knows how to. Maybe he'll do that.
Credit.
But one single credit.
I'm kind of mad that didn't pan out because I was like, this is the perfect parallel. Starts with one credit, ends with one credit.
Ends with one credit. I totally agree with you. When he said when he started to say cold hard credits and then didn't get to finish his sentence, I was like, oh, we're getting there in terms of the parallel. And that was the only part of the parallel, right? Is that he ends with nothing. And I think that it's worth, his entire pirate crew is presumably dead. They all went down with the ship, but he didn't. He gets away. And I think that's important.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's his nature as a pirate.
Yeah.
So many different names, so many different lives lived, so many chances. You know what I mean? He's
on to the next chance.
Yeah, he's always, kind of like a cat with 9 lives.
Scrappy.
Yeah. So after that, the kids race back to the Onyx Cinder. I wouldn't be surprised, actually, if Jod goes back to the Onyx Cinder and is able to get that off the planet. But they go.
I really thought that we'd get an epilogue. Not gonna lie.
I did too.
With that,
that's probably my one disappointment. I'll be honest. But this final scene with the kids, they all meet back up. Neil is back on the game board. They're back at the Onyx Cinder, and
Neil's back in play.
Back on the map. Which I have to say, we didn't talk about the moment of KB and SM-33 on the ship as it was going down.
So good.
It was so good. And KB is, you know, fixing it like always. And there's this beautiful moment where one of her moms says, you know, KB, you can fix anything, sweetie, or something like that. And her moms are watching the ship go down too, you know, and it was just so it was a lot. It was emotional. Yeah. And anyway, I love KB's moms. I love Neil's mom. I can't really say I love Neil's dad because, you know, MIA a good part of the time, but whatever.
I have a theory about that, by the way. I think that Neil's dad's costume
is just too much.
Elaborate. It's too big. I think it's too big. I bet you can't actually walk in that big of a costume.
I'm sorry. There's no way. The number of weird, heavy, big costumes.
Okay, if you worked on Skeleton Crew in Legacy Effects, you can contact us and let us know if that was the reason why we only saw Neil's dad like twice.
In the world of Star Wars, Neil's dad is not the biggest costume that's ever had to walk around.
It's not. I will give you that. But I do think they're elaborate, and maybe it's more CGI than anything. And they
if
we're still
Neil could do that, could do so many action stunts in his getup. Robert Timothy Smith.
Yeah.
No excuses. No excuses.
Well, Neil is a mixture of CGI and puppetry.
He is, but as we heard Robert Timothy Smith talk about the wet gloves he had to put on every day.
Can't believe it's taken us 8 episodes before we mentioned the wet, sweaty gloves.
No wonder Robert had to take bubble bath.
If you don't know, if you didn't listen to our interview with the kids, which was just delightful and like the most fun we've ever had interviewing ever, it was our question, right? We asked them if they wanted to take anything back and from the set, and Robert was like, I want to take my disgusting gloves. And he described them. They were so sweaty. We'd take them off and they'd have to like blow dry them and towel them off. And I'd be so sweaty, which is so disgusting. And all the other kids are looking at him like,
ew,
that's so gross. Ew. It was perfect.
It was very funny. But okay, so anyway, they all get back to the Onyx Cinder. Neil, once again, back on the game board. And the gold credits pour out. KB as well. It was very alarming. But the first thing she says when she wakes up is, did we win? And they have another group hug. And I was just so happy to have another group hug. SM33 is alive and well, holding his head. Always knew he'd be fine, but glad to have that confirmed. And I love the idea that SM33 is just now on At Attin with the kids, and he'll just be with them for forever now until they go on their next adventure, because the final shot is Fern saying, hey, Wim, looks like you don't have to take assessment anymore, as all of the X-Wings come in, and Wim looks back at the Onyx Cinder and up at the X-Wings. And then it ends, and more X-Wings and the New Republic arrive on At Attin, and the episode is over.
Mm-hmm. It was great. I feel like that was such a perfect, hopeful look. The music was perfect. I love the concept of, the entire structure of At Attin is blown to bits because, you don't have to take assessment anymore. Look around.
There was a giant machine gun on top of the school.
Giant machine gun. Our leader's dead.
Our leader's dead.
Our barrier's down. Like, it's a total restructure.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be crazy for this whole society to, enter into the galaxy as it exists now, and what they're going to do with all that money. Is that money even worth anything, really, when you have so much of it like they do? I don't know. There's a lot to unpack. I had kind of thought that there would be a little epilogue of, 6 months later, here's what's happening on At Attin. Yeah. And, you can see that people are coming to the planet, and, Wim and Wendell are going on a trip off planet or something like that. I thought that would have been really sweet. I get why they didn't, but I kind of wish we had seen it.
How do you think this is going to fit into the rest of the Mandalorian shows?
I don't know. I think maybe it is just kind of, it's in that timeline, because
it's just its own thing.
Yeah, I guess it's really kind of figuring out what to do with all the money and the mint now. I guess that would be a piece of it, the practical piece that the New Republic would want to figure out, and really just how to get everyone up to
Like, do we need like a marshal on At Attin now?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah, probably.
I think there are ways that it could work in Mandalorian season something or
Yeah.
the movie or something.
Yeah. I mean, like, what would it? So then what?
Or, oh my God, an idea just came to my head.
Speak it.
Thrawn.
Oh.
Using the mint.
He's coming back.
He's already back, baby, because of
that's
Ahsoka.
True. He's already back.
That was such an ominous ending.
Yeah.
Where it was like, okay, well, now we have Thrawn, a formidable foe.
Well, he's got to get control of At Attin away from the New Republic now.
Yeah. I think there's ways that they can integrate it. In fact, I think it's such a cool planet that when this show, while it was, we saw the galaxy through the eyes of the kids. We didn't go that many places, and we really did spend the first 2 episodes and then now this last episode. So 3 out of 8, almost half of the time on this one planet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities, especially thinking about if the other planets, the other jewels of the Republic were actually destroyed. So even if Thrawn hears about At Attin, realizes he can't get it, could explore the other planets. I can't remember any other names.
The iconography that we saw throughout it with the murals and everything, I think there's another story to be told there that it automatically, I mean, we thought this, it felt very Dave Filoni-esque. It felt very Mortis-ish when we saw those things, like the way that everything was connected. I could see them going down a path of discovering something else on the planet or something, because we're in a very concentrated part of this planet too.
Yeah.
And even when Wim was mentioning we went to go into the crystals to find that, I was
Mountains.
Like, oh yeah, the Northern Mountains. I was like, wow, does At Attin have mountains? I guess it does, because I think we've seen them. But I was like, oh, there's more to explore on the planet is sort of my whole point. I'm not saying that any of that is true.
Yeah.
But if they really wanted to spend more time as a Star Wars story on this planet, they could.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of mysteries, especially with how this relates to like the High Republic or the Old Republic or something in the past, how it was formed, these jewels of the Old Republic. I mean, there's a lot there.
And Wim still has the lightsaber.
Oh, yeah, so true.
So, I mean, he's got to do something with it. Sabine's new apprentice.
Oh my gosh. That would be crazy.
That would be wild. Okay, I love that.
Okay, let's talk also about how we had speculated that Jason
Oh,
could potentially be in this show.
that would be so fun.
And now I still really want Jason to meet these kids.
I love Jason Syndulla so freaking much. That kid stole my heart in the Ahsoka show. For Wim to meet someone like Jason who actually has Force capabilities and can use them well would be so wild, since it feels like they're all kind of the same age. It would be so great. I would like to personally request that.
I think they'd be friends.
They would be friends. And Chopper would be there too. Chopper and SM-33 would just be
Chopper and Fern, I feel like
that's
would be a really good combo.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. It's so dangerous.
Chopper would be like, hey, wait a second. I found
Yeah.
Let's bring Fern along with us.
There's a lot of possibilities that I think could be really fun around these kids now being exposed to other parts of Star Wars stories.
Yeah, I totally agree. Wow, that would be so great. I would love Jason to join their little group. He's so fun.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We haven't talked any bit about the end credits, which are so adorable, and what a fantastic way to end it, with the end credits being Wim's little storybook, and then it ends with the beginning, basically, when they are on the Onyx Cinder, and the kids are now part of Wim's story. And then it ends with like this sort of closing of his storybook, which couldn't be more what maybe I always say on this show about, like, now we close the story, we close Skeleton Crew, and we put this book on the shelf. We put it on the shelf, which is another lovely little Star Wars story that we put on the shelf. Like, here we are. And I cannot believe it ended that way, because we're putting it on the shelf
Putting it on the shelf.
in a lovely way.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really nice. I loved the credits. That's one of the great things about the Mandalorian credits is the concept art. And so it was nice to obviously this is not concept art, it's Wim's book, but to have something
Special.
special for the end of Skeleton Crew like this. It was really sweet. I really liked it.
I want to spend a second to talk about how in the beginning of the show when we were talking about whether we liked it and what we've always liked it, right? But I had asked you about whether or not we got the Star Wars feeling in these first 2 episodes. And we were sort of on the fence around it. Like we thought that we would feel more grounded and when we learn more about what the kids know about the galaxy, and it turns out not much. And that we were still sort of figuring out the tonality around the show and whether or not it had the Star Wars feeling. By the end of it, I can confidently say I feel like this, especially this finale, was very Star Wars feeling forward to me. It was super hopeful and joyous, and it just really reminded me of some of the best parts of Star Wars. And I think it really sits alongside some of our other, key heroes. And while it's not a Skywalker-centered story, I did feel like this is such a fun Star Wars story. And we had sort of talked about how effective and wonderful it is to explore these different types of genres or different like corners within Star Wars and how, perspectives and how it just builds a really rich tapestry of Star Wars stories. And I still feel that way. I don't know about you. How are you feeling about the Star Wars feeling?
I feel the same as you. I think that we talked a lot about at the beginning of the season with how heavily they were leaning into the pirate aesthetic and how it almost felt like the pirate aesthetic was outweighing the Star Wars aesthetic at certain points at the very beginning of the show, especially when the kids are walking around the ship and we've got, the big hat with the feather and the skeletons and the knives and the swords, that just felt so, oh my God, a pirate. We're on a pirate ship, not a Star Wars ship, right? And how that didn't make it not Star Wars. It just felt so different to be leaning so heavily into that genre and that kind of corner of, pirate stories that we had seen explored in Star Wars before, but never quite to this extent visually, I think. And then as we went throughout the show, it was kind of like it just being folded in more and more, and then even adding in, the lightsaber and then the X-wings and, talking about the Republic more. It was like all these ingredients kind of got added into the pirate soup, these other Star Wars ingredients. And it really did just, I think you said it really well about this like new tapestry basically of Star Wars and how this did become the Star Wars feeling for me fully. And I really loved the trajectory of tracking that feeling because that's what we were talking about is that we want more of this kind of heavy leaning into other genres and visual languages of other types of film and film language and stuff, and to put it into the Star Wars world. And I think that Skeleton Crew did this probably the best of kind of any other Star Wars show we've had thus far. And I think it did it really successfully. And it totally felt like Star Wars to me.
They fully stuck the landing. Like by the end of it, I was like, wow, is this a perfect show? Like genuinely. And I don't want to get into it on the show because it's just kind of like not what we do. Maybe we'll talk about it later in our Q&A or anything like that. But I want more people to watch it. I want more people to watch this show because I really feel like I haven't met a single person who isn't obsessed. My parents loved it. They keep talking about it to anyone they know. And I feel like people with kids are like, this is the best thing to watch with kids. It's so great. And I really hope that it just continues to gain momentum. And again, I'm not saying obviously I hope that it has a season 2, but I want people to freaking watch it. Like, I think it's just great.
Yeah.
And I want people to experience that joy.
Yeah, I do too. It was so fun. I think everyone needs to see Neil in the bubble bath. So
Totally.
I gotta get on that train. I wonder, is there going to be Neil bubble bath bubbles that we could buy at some point?
Oh my God. Celebration merch.
I'm imagining I think about Remember Carrie Fisher talking about, lather
Yes.
up with Princess Leia.
Leia. And you'll feel like a princess
Yeah,
yourself.
but then the bottle is also like a Pez dispenser, and it's Neil's head on top, but it's bubble bath. Anyway, I'm creating this product in my head as we speak right now.
Mhm.
And that is not a very good segue from the wonderful conversation of how good Skeleton Crew is. But I'm totally with you.
Yes.
I want more people to watch this show and to fall in love with these kids. And I absolutely want to see more stories with them. And I really hope we get the opportunity to see these kids again and to see what they're doing having grown up too, because it's been a couple
Yeah.
years since filming completed. Like the actors themselves are older, so it would be fun to see what they're doing in this like teenager range now. You know what I mean?
That's what Chris and John were planning for. When they talked about they had ideas for season 2 and 3, they said that in some interview, and they said it would be like a 3-year time jump
Yeah.
because it would have to be. But I think that's great. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be great. And, bring in Jason Sandula as well. It's the gang's all here.
I also think that with these shows, you and I really thrive in the speculation verse of shows that center the Force.
Yeah.
And like the mythic elements. So it was really refreshing to walk away from a show like this, having loved it as much as I did. Again, I just really snuck up on us, and I'm so happy that I really didn't have any huge expectations for it in like the mythic sense, honestly.
Yeah.
That it just exceeded anything that I could have ever hoped. I loved it so much.
It was just so charming. Probably the most charming Star Wars show we've ever had.
So charming. It's such a good word.
It's very charming. All right. Well, is that it? I know I'm not ready to put it on the shelf, but I think we have to. We can take it down again later.
Yeah, it's just on the shelf.
Yeah, it's right there. It's right there on the
It's
shelf.
not locked away on the shelf. It's just on the shelf.
Not like,
that's the joy of the
It's
shelf.
not like the basement of the Jedi archives or the Supervisor's
Not
tower.
at all. Or even like Luke's archive in the tree, none of that. None of that.
Right.
No, it's just on our lovely
It's just
shelf.
on our shelf. It's on the Sky Talker shelf.
Yeah,
It can come down
our
at any
shelf.
time. It's like a library.
And it will.
Really. So
Yes.
access at any time. Always available for checkout.
I do want to say one last thing. This is my last thing I want to say.
Okay.
And that is the Tak Renad story never came around. And
Right.
I think this is on us. Okay? I think this is on us because every Star Wars show, there's one thing that is just sort of blown out of proportion in terms of speculation.
He was our masked man.
Yes, like the Merrick on freaking.
We know better than to speculate on masked men.
I know. And Tak Renad was that. And the thing is I guess I just didn't take SM33's story about like the crew killing each other on their way down and blah, 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 right? The concubine like stabbing him or something. I guess that is what happened, but I just didn't believe it because that felt like a tall tale. And I was also like, nothing's really adding up. Like I'm really confused. But then I guess, when Jod takes that sword from the skeleton, I guess that's him.
Yeah.
Stabbed by the concubine.
What is the concubine?
Again, I think anyway, I feel like there's like the story told us that, and again, I should know better. But I do think that there was a chance that there was something else. And I guess that the magic of the chance that there was something else. I don't want to feel like that. Like, oh, I got so twisted with my speculation. No, I think everyone was kind of feeling this too. But yeah, that didn't really come back around. And I'm okay with it. I just like, it's a lesson.
It still could, though.
Totally. There was no confirmation around it.
Yeah, I mean,
he wasn't even mentioned in this episode.
Yeah, we can say that skeleton was Tak Renad, but very well, like it works either way. So we're in the clear.
Yeah.
We can speculate about him another day.
I'm going to continue to speculate about him because he really does look like what's it called? What are the species? Hondo Ohnaka species.
Yeah.
Weequay.
Mm-hmm.
Weequay. He looks like a Weequay.
He does.
From the from the screenshot.
And he's not technically masked, so he's safe for speculation.
Totally. That's it, though, for me. Great show.
Great show. Loved it. I hope you guys liked it, too. Thank you all for joining us on our Skeleton Crew journey from At Attin to the galaxy and back again. It was so fun. And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening and enjoying the show. We're really excited. We've got a lot of big things coming down the pipeline next for Sky Talkers. We have our birthday episode next week, which again, you can head to our Instagram, Twitter, email us hello@skytalkers.com to submit questions that you'd like us to answer about Skeleton Crew or really anything and everything else about the podcast or us if you're interested in other things. And next up is Celebration Japan. And Andor is coming down the line as well. So we've got a lot and other things as well on the show. So a lot is coming. We will be picking back up with our Clone Wars rewatch. So look forward to that. That is coming soon. And yeah, we're just really excited. Charlotte and I actually had a meeting the other day about the Sky Talkers schedule and 2025 plans and mapping out a lot of stuff. And
we got it all planned out, baby. Weekly episodes. Woohoo. We're doing this.
The calendar was updated. And I'm excited. We've got fun things.
Yeah, get ready for more Clone Wars if you're joining us on the rewatch.
Yes, yeah.
Every other week.
Yep. It's going to be good stuff. And yeah, and again, I'm saying Japan again because that is just so soon.
It's crazy. We've known about Japan for 2 years.
And
now it's almost here.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm really excited. I'm so excited for Celebration. Maybe we'll get Skeleton Crew news at Celebration. That would be fabulous. And a lot of fun things are coming. Please follow us on social media if you want to keep up with what we're doing. You can follow us on Twitter /X at SkyTalkersPod, on Instagram, on TikTok, on TikTok.
That's so freaking sad.
As long as you can, we'll be there. Listen, I have hope, but whatever. We'll be on TikTok until we can't be on TikTok anymore. And you can email us hello@skytalkers.com. We are on Facebook as well. And yeah, if you want to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, that would be most appreciated. It helps people find our show. You can also take a screenshot of listening to the show in real time and post it on your social media platform of choice. And that is also a great kind of word of mouth that you are listening and enjoying the show and recommending it to other people. And if you'd like to support our show in other ways and be involved in our wonderful Discord community, you can head on over to our Patreon and check out our different reward tiers there.
I want to say a huge thank you to these patrons: Stephen, Kylie, Chris, Becky, Brian, Leslie, Allie, Celeste, Jules, Mags, Pam, Jay Gent, Joey, Mondays on Dagobah, Starbores, Stephen, Madison, Catherine, Lucy, Alexa, BJ, Nina, Ira Bell, Draconius Rex, Allie, and Raphael. Thank you so much for supporting us.
Thank you guys so much. And until next time, may the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.
This has been a 58 Ember production. For more shows, please visit the 58 Ember channel, 58ember.com, or find us at 58 Ember Media on socials.